realized that I hadn't actually shown you guys this artwork before, so I wanted to just explain a little bit about it. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. So this artwork is huge. It's, I believe, probably 120 centimeters squared. So I don't know how many feet that is. And the black work you can see is actually ink. So I used the ink pens, the Staedtler ink pens. I don't have any right here to show you, apologies. And it's highly, highly detailed. The black ink alone on this artwork took over 200 hours of very patient drawing. And there are, if you can see the shadows here, the shading, they are actually teeny tiny little dots. So there are a lot of dots in this artwork. Now, the colors are a whole other layer. To get this sort of translucent kind of color, I do use a combination of watercolor paints as well as gouache and sometimes even some ink, colored ink. But I think this is mostly watercolor paint. I actually did this artwork a couple of years ago. It's been finished for a few years, and I do bring it out for the occasional exhibition. But as it is an older artwork, I do tend to store it away a lot more than I, present it. These, this outer edge here are actually very, very fine lines, which are all drawn freehand. Of course, there's no rulers that ever get used in my artworks. So the only ruler that I ever use is to lay out the original grid in pencil, between the compass, the protractor for the angles, and then the ruler to rule the guidelines. After that point, there are no more rulers or any templatey elements ever used. So that's something I do for myself. I just challenge myself to do everything freehand, and through breath work and focus, I create what I consider to be an artwork as perfect as I can. A big thing I learned with this artwork, actually, this was sort of a personal challenge for me. I was going through a very hard time personally, so it was very much a therapy piece, and I was drawing out all my very heavy emotions that were coming out through I was processing them as I was drawing. That's my process of art therapy, is to take emotions, sit with them, and then channel them into drawing. So that's why there were so many hundreds of hours involved for me, that it's not really so much about patience as about just working through heavy emotions. So I don't have to pay for counseling or do anything like that, because this process does work for me. That's why it is so obsessively detailed and painstakingly detailed, especially with the hundreds and thousands of dots that exist in all the shaded areas. So this artwork to me is not one that I love to have up in the house, because it to me is my therapy from a very, very heavy time in my life. So it's not something I love to look at and see. To me, it's more of just an expression or a challenge of how far can I push myself? How much can I achieve with just a pencil or a pen in my hand and me, and intention? How far can I go? What can I achieve? To the point where I took this artwork to a framer, and they didn't realize that it had been hand drawn. They presumed, because it looked so perfect from first glance, that it was simply a computerized image. And I was stunned. I was absolutely shocked and heartbroken at the same time, because I realized that another human couldn't see what I put into this as a human. So they just completely discarded it as something I had printed out. I don't even know how you would print, but anyway, something I had printed out and simply painted it and then just gone to get it framed. And so I realized this was a turning point for me in my art. It's not about being able to achieve something with such perfection that now the human eye can't even discern whether it's hand drawn or computer generated. So I feel like I reached the pinnacle. This to me was the point where I needed to then shift and turn back into a more like it needs to have that more human imperfection injected into it so that people can relate to it, because there's nothing exciting about looking at something that looks perfect. I can guarantee this is not perfect. There are so many mistakes in here, and I've covered them up. You would never know. But when at first glance it looks so perfect, you instantly detach from it and you can't connect with it because it doesn't look real. It doesn't look like something that a human has created. So it really taught me to step back and stop trying to achieve this technical brilliance. I've reached it, and now what? Well, now I need to figure out the next challenge. So over the last few years, I've been challenging myself with different mediums, different styles, different materials to create mandalas that bring me joy and excitement, that do actually connect with people. And so this artwork does sort of sit with me as a reminder of the therapy, a reminder of where I've been, where I've come from, but also to remind me to keep that uniqueness that makes us as humans, what makes us unique. Now with AI and everything being so easy to recreate and churn out with a few word prompts, you can churn out the perfect mandala. Well, great, but there's nothing exciting about that. There's nothing interesting. And I feel like that this artwork kind of recalls to that robotic or perfectionist thing, which I'm just not trying to be anymore. So for me, the greatest challenge is actually loosening up and injecting some humanness, some flaws, which are actually within us all. And ironically, this artwork, I was so flawed and so broken at the time that I created it. It's like every one little bit of life I had in me went into this artwork, and now it projects that back to me in all this glory, and it's beautiful. But I never want to sell this artwork, because the value it could never hold the same value for anyone else. For me, it's like a portal, a reminder of just where I've been, what I've achieved, and now pivot and move forward. Anyway, that's a very long description, but I think every artwork does have a story. It does have a purpose far beyond what it looks like on the surface. So I'm glad I got to share with you the story of this artwork today. I hope you've enjoyed observing it, and I will look forward to catching up with you very shortly. Have a great day. See you next time.